The Greenbrier Ghost. Alva Zona Heister was born in Greenbrier County, West Virginia in 1873. In 1896, 23-year-old Zona met a drifter named Edward Stribling Trout Shoe. He was looking to start a new life as a blacksmith in the county, and Zona fell in love with him, even though her mother disapproved. Already a single mother, Zona soon married Shoe. In January of 1897, just 3 months after the wedding, Shoe sent his neighbor's young boy to see if Zona needed anything from the market. When the neighbor boy walked through the front door of the Shoe's rural Greenbrier County house in West Virginia, he found Zona's lifeless body at the foot of the stairs. Her body was stretched out straight with her legs together. One arm was at her side, and the other rested across her chest. Her head was tilted to one side. At first he thought that the woman was simply asleep on the floor. The neighborhood boy stepped towards her, quietly calling, "Miss Shoe?" When she didn't respond, he panicked and bolted from the house. He ran home and told his mother, who called George W. Knapp, the local doctor and coroner. By the time Knapp had arrived, nearly an hour later, Shoe had moved his wife's body upstairs, laid her out on the bed, and redressed her for burial. She was lying on the bed wearing a high-necked dress. Dr. Knapp began to examine the body, but every time Knapp attempted to examine Zona's neck or head, Shoe became agitated. This so distressed Shoe that the doctor's examination was incomplete. He first reported that the cause of death was an everlasting faint, but later changed the cause to childbirth, even though no one seems to know if she was even pregnant at the time of her death. Zona was taken to the home of her mother, Mrs. Mary Jane Heister, on nearby Big Seawall Mountain. When the casket was opened, Shoe always remained at the head of the casket, protectively. The next day, her body was buried in the little cemetery on the hilltop. Mary, her mother, had never liked Shoe, and his actions, combined with the strange looseness to Zona's head at the funeral, convinced her that Shoe had murdered her daughter. Then, strange things began to happen. She had taken a rolled-up white sheet from Zona's coffin before it had been sealed. When she washed the sheet, the wash water turned red. The sheet turned a pink color that she could not remove, which furthered her suspicions. About 4 weeks after her daughter's death, Zona's mother began having visions. She claimed her daughter appeared to her in a dream 4 nights in a row to tell her a story. Supposedly, the spirit appeared first as a bright light, gradually taking a human form and filling the room with a chill. According to Mary, Zona's ghost said that Shoe was a cruel man who abused her, and one night, when she didn't cook him the dinner that he wanted, he attacked her and broke her neck. To prove this, the ghost spun her head all the way around. The ghost continued to visit Mary for 4 nights, telling the same story over and over. Mary went to the local prosecutor, John Preston, and spent the afternoon at his office trying to get him to reopen the case. He certainly had his doubts about it, but there was enough that was unusual or suspicious about the case that he decided to pursue it. Preston ordered Zona's body exhumed for an autopsy. Edward protested the action, but had no power to stop it. Dr. Knapp was also consulted, and he admitted that his examination had been incomplete. During a complete autopsy, doctors found that Zona's neck had been broken. It had been dislocated between the first and second vertebrae. Her windpipe was crushed, and her neck was bruised as if she had been strangled. Edward Shoe was arrested on charges of murder. During Shoe's background check, it was found that Zona was not his first wife. Shoe had been married twice before. In 1885, he married Ellen Cutlip and separated in 1888. Ellen later told police that Shoe was extremely violent and beat her frequently when they were married. In 1894, Shoe married Lucy Tritt, and less than a year later, Lucy was dead. There is no record as to how Lucy died. Stories of her death range from falling on the ice while pregnant, to being hit on the head by a brick accidentally dropped by Shoe, to being deliberately poisoned by Shoe. Between his first 2 marriages, he was arrested for stealing a horse and spent 2 years in prison. On June 22, 1897, the jury returned a verdict of guilty after only 1 hour and 10 minutes of deliberation. The accounts made clear that Shu was convicted of the murder of his third wife on circumstantial evidence, and not simply because of a ghost's testimony. He was moved to a state penitentiary where he died in 1900, probably of pneumonia.
Marisol Gonsalez. 17-year-old Marisol Gonsalez lived in Cottonwood, Arizona. She was a top student at Menger's Union High School, had lots of friends and a close-knit family that loved her. In the summer of 1997, before her junior year, she began dating one of her neighbors and classmates, Cecilio Cruz. However, when Marisol discovered that Cecilio had another girlfriend, she broke up with him. Soon after, she found out that she was pregnant. On March 24, 1997, around 10 p.m., Marisol, now full term in her pregnancy, received a phone call. She left her home wearing slippers, her sweatpants, and a light jacket. This would be the last time she was seen again by her family. The next morning, when the family couldn't find Marisol in her bed, she was reported missing to the police. Around 6 a.m., a body would be found in an alleyway a block away from her house. She had been shot once in the face. Her body was discovered by a man who lived across the street from the alley. English was his second language, so he had his son call the police. During their investigation, police had a hard time getting statements from the potential witnesses. There were rumors that Cecilio was a gang member and that he may be involved in illegal drug activity. Investigators felt that witnesses may have been or felt intimidated by Cruz or his ties to the gang. Another rumor that was floating around during the initial investigation was that Marisol was killed by a rival gang as some kind of retribution to Cecilio. This was a rumor that Cecilio reportedly perpetuated. However, it didn't seem like that Marisol, who was 9 months and 1 week pregnant and was scheduled to give birth to her son the next day, would have left her house at night without telling anyone where she was going for just anyone. Police theorized that she was there to meet up with Cecilio. Police would repeatedly question Cecilio, but he would deny having spoken to Marisol the entire day. He said that he was sleeping in his home on that night. Cecilio remained a prime suspect, but with no new leads and with no potential new witnesses coming forward, the case soon went cold. Then, in 2014, The Cold Justice Show, which is a TNT TV show that investigates unsolved murders, decided to look into the case. Cottonwood police and the Cold Justice team paired up and investigated over 90 leads around this case. The potential witnesses who didn't give statements in 1997 started to come forward. They interviewed a witness who provided a timeline for when Marisol may have been killed. She lived across the street from that alleyway. She reportedly had heard a gunshot at around midnight and walked out to her balcony to take a look around, but she didn't see anything. She didn't see a car speeding off or driving away, which eliminates the possibility that Marisol was killed by a rival gang member seeking retribution. She initially did not see Marisol's body because it was so dark. They also talked to Marisol's sister. She reported that around 10 p.m. on that night, she was on a long-distance telephone call. When she got off the phone, she gave it to Marisol, who decided to phone her friend. This was the last person to talk to her. The investigators located the friend and questioned her about that day. She told them that on that day, while she was talking to Marisol on the phone, Marisol received a call from Cecilio, and Marisol told her that she had to take the call and would talk to her later. This statement proved to the investigators that Cecilio had lied about not talking to Marisol on that day. Cecilio had been their prime suspect but never had enough evidence to charge him. When detectives showed up at Cecilio's place of employment to talk to him, he refused to answer questions without an attorney present. Police also found that Cecilio's other girlfriend was also pregnant at the time of Marisol's murder. In fact, during an appointment with her OBGYN, Marisol had actually run into the other woman sitting in the waiting room. Police believe that Cecilio had killed Marisol, as Cecilio was only 17 years old at the time, and the thought of financially supporting two families was more than he was ready to deal with. The Cottonwood police presented their findings to the district attorney's office, who decided to take this case to a grand jury to seek a murder indictment against Cecilio Cruz. In 2014, Cecilio Cruz was charged with a second-degree murder and manslaughter. But since 2014, the case has seen multiple delays, with two teams of public defenders withdrawing themselves, citing ethical conflicts. A new trial date has been set to begin for Cecilio Cruz on January 8, 2020.